Okay, so this is not like a screen we get with patch notes. This is just some developers talking about the changes one by one. So I can't just scroll through it. This is a stream where we get the changes one at a time. So keep that in mind before the stream starts. Rejuvenating Breeze nerfs. Yeah, I mean, that would be a good start for Wildfire nerfs. Like Rejuvenating Breeze needs to draw 2 different spells. So they can't just draw like 2 Wildfire. I think that would be a fantastic change. Yeah. I authorized to stream the stream. I'm gonna be real. I haven't asked for permission. I have in the past, and I said it was okay. So I'm just gonna assume it's okay again because I've done it the last 2 times. Keep it on the down low. Don't tell Riot, okay? They're on YouTube. We're on Twitch. They're never gonna find us. Oh
all right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our patch 4.10.
What do you think the best deck is?
Live stream. I'm very excited. We are streaming to both YouTube and Twitch today for the first time. We are experimenting. I have my eye on both of the chats, so hopefully I can catch all of the really good questions and answer anything that you guys want to know for this live stream. So let's go ahead and kick it right off. We are going to get right into these balance changes.
Hell yeah.
Let's go ahead and let our designers introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves. Let's go ahead and start with Aaron. Take it away.
Hello, everyone.
As long as you can see like this right here
on Legends of Runeterra. You maybe know me from running the community card kitchen. I've also made a bunch of flex cards, worked on Fate's Voyage, was a member of that design team, and I'm helping design the first release of 2024. And I'm joined by my awesome co-lead, which is maybe not normal, but this patch has had a little bit of interesting history.
I cannot turn up the sound any higher.
Patch than normal.
This is Max.
So thank you so much, John, for helping take over the patch and being an additional lead on it.
Yeah, happy to do it. Yeah, I'm John Mormon. I'm a game design manager on the team and also occasional game designer.
It's Max.
I was co-set lead for World Walker in the Darkened Saga, all those sets, and then I'm going to be lead designer on the second release of 2024. So
I got to do this
right after Aaron's set. We did have 2 more people who helped us work on this set, who aren't here with us today, but we're still going to brag about them.
Yep. So we had Brian Koplek, who was my initial second to help me with this patch. Normally our patches are 2 people. He led, of course, Glory Navori and Heart of the Huntress.
Couldn't resist.
Coins are tight, did some awesome stuff. If you've played pretty much anything recently, you've certainly worked with Brian's work. We also have Paulo this time.
Likes drawing cards.
Paulo Vitor Domitorosa, who's new on the team, joined roughly 2 months ago. Hasn't been design lead on anything yet. We're working on making that happen. But yeah, he's pretty good at other card games, and didn't want me to put that on the slide, but it's true.
Yeah, so I was the lead that started the patch, so I had set up kind of some initial goals, as we often do for patches. Of course, any standard balance patches, nerfs to the overperformers of the current standard
anti-elusive tools.
We want to make sure the new cards weren't too unhealthy and
we're good.
Bring things back down to a reasonable level. In addition to that, really for this one, we were looking at big monsters. You know, we just released Volibear and the Titanic and everything there, and we're trying to make a very concentrated effort to make these big monsters better. And this patch is a good time to go in and look at
Badger 3 mana 5/5. That'll do it.
In addition to that,
that'll do it.
There's a lot of really cool, sad epics that exist. As we're looking at using, rarity and stuff for like Path of Champions, it turns out that some of our more rare cards are actually just like kind of bad and not in like a fun way. They're just not fun or good, and no one really wants them, and that's just not a great place to be. So we wanted to take a look at all those and see if we could make getting an epic in Path of Champions or opening an epic in the game a more exciting thing. And in addition to that, we had an extra little cycle of, can we give a couple more anti-elusive tools to the game? We always see players frustrated that maybe their deck doesn't really have something to help fight elusives, or that feels like there's just something missing for that. So pushing a little bit on that whenever we can was definitely one of the things I wanted.
So giving y'all a temperature check on chat, everyone shares the same sentiment that I have, the anti-elusive tools being a very welcome change. It's kind of fun getting, like writing the patch notes and getting to see the changes early, because I was very thankful for this too.
It's been 2
so
patches
let's see what y'all have been cooking. Let's just start with the nerfs right away. Oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for this one. Please take it away.
There we go.
Yeah, this
Fantastic.
is a nerf that
Good
I
start.
think will surprise basically no one.
There's
we're going
Warden.
to
Gone.
Increase the cost of Warden of the Tribes back up to 9, kind of reverting a change we had made in a previous patch. Warden decks are meant to be kind of this, like, you pay a little bit of cost in deck building to develop this menagerie of subtypes, and then Warden lets you win the game. But honestly, like, the menagerie build that has been going around is just consistent enough that
my mana is big. That's what it was before.
Deck building is not really like limiting the deck in the way that it should. So we wanted to push Warden back another turn, make you have to wait a little bit longer for that menagerie payoff to land and kind of take over the game. And secondarily, we've just kind of noticed that Innovative Blacksmith is a really important card for a lot of Freljord-based equipment decks and kind of Freljord in general.
That came
as a way to like stabilize
in
the board,
a variety patch, by
value, and kind of like
crazy
decently sized body into play. So making that slightly weaker, we think the card will still like have a very strong role in Freljord decks, but not be quite as dominant.
Yeah. And I see you loud and clear, Matt. Thank you for the feedback. Some of the people in chat are also thinking that Warden at this cost is still going to be fair. Is that some of the thought behind why we're also hitting Blacksmith? People seem to be a little bit sad. They love the Blacksmith, but all things in balance.
Ace 1 mana.
I still think the Blacksmith is pretty good.
We're all here hoping
numbers.
for it.
I don't think it actually takes it out of the game entirely. So I'm pretty certain Innovative Blacksmith will still play a role, and we would still like it to. And then in terms of the Warden change, we don't want to 100% kill the deck dead. Like, I think it does create an interesting deck building challenge and like push you to play some cards you wouldn't normally play alongside like other Freljord mid-range decks or Freljord Demacia mid-range decks. So we didn't want to just like nuke it from orbit. We wanted to instead try and contain it a little bit and leave the door open in case it needs to be dealt with.
Look at it, man. It's kind of an abomination.
Yeah, I just want to say in particular, part of the goal for the patch was making big plays, more big plays, something people want to do. So just increasing Warden and keeping it awesome and powerful is much more of like what we want to do with big monsters rather than, make them weaker and less cool. No, just make them cost a little more and still be as sweet as possible.
That's a really good point.
Let's go on to the next one. I think this might make maybe Snnuy a little sad and some others, but
I think if Wildfire is what's making you sad,
I'm sad.
That's probably what you're doing to some other people.
Like
I'll admit it. So Wildfire, is one of those cards
I can print, man. That's all right.
From Fate's Voyage, where we wanted to give kind of some of the
if I use E-Blade Perfectionist on Wildfire, it's still 1 mana, all right?
Or Bursting Backpack, and they were kind of supposed to be,
sure,
decks
man.
people could play, but maybe weren't meta breakers. And Wildfire's definitely been crushing our metrics. Way more powerful and kind of uninteractive than we really want a spell-based like kill to be. Bursting Backpack a little healthier in that regard. So definitely just trying to slow down Wildfire, make it where if you build your deck entirely around them, hopefully this will cost you an extra turn or two by, if you play 5 of
Not
these
what
in
I
the game,
expected,
that's plus 5 extra mana. That's a lot.
A lot of people are sending their condolences to Wake. It's quite crazy because you see two types of people in chat. People are celebrating this, very, very happy, and some people are very, very sad. So I can tell who has been abusing this card based on their Twitch and YouTube comments.
Yeah, speak up, chat. Who's been abusing this card?
Yeah, I will say that.
Raise your hand right now.
I don't think the card is dead. It is still very powerful and it still does its thing. You still play 6 Wildfires in a game, and that's 21 damage. Just because it's a little slower, that's still going to win games.
Let's move on.
I mean, 6 mana to kill somebody instead of 12?
Sure that one of our producers, Greg, will be sad about this, but...
Poor Greg.
Dude, I'm so done.
Yeah, so we've
so
also
done
seen
with this, man.
Pretty gaudy numbers recently, in spite of being a deck that hasn't changed a lot in the past couple years. One of the major spikes...
Why would you ever play Pike outside of Lurk now? Every single time, dude. I swear.
Over, put a big swing on the board and really change things up.
Whatever.
We think Lurk's general play pattern is its own thing. There are a lot of
sure.
people who absolutely love it, and we don't want to just
Pike, Lurk need to be nerfed, but
entirely.
Really,
but kind of reducing their reliance on some of these champions may actually be healthier for the deck as a whole.
Pike when dead, unplayable.
Sounds good. Let's keep this nerf train going. Let's see what else is our next stop.
Let's go!
This one is a long
Let's freaking
time
go,
coming.
man! God bless
Calling for some
both of them.
changes to Jace Heimer.
Screw you, Hyper Jace. Get out of here.
Popular, which has
Thank God.
a long while at this point.
Yeah.
Forever. So
Cult that nerf
that's what we're doing here. We have 2 nerfs. One is to Epic Scrap Traption.
God
the
freaking
token
bless.
Subway, Runaway Scrap Trap lose Brash.
Oh
that
my
is a
god,
card
I'm so happy
even
about this, dude.
non-Jace decks were playing sometimes to just make a 6/6 Brash on round 3, and it kind of led to more non-games than we were hoping.
It's still good in
so
a deck,
cleaning
but you
that
don't
off,
just
maybe
lose to
making
it randomly
just more
anymore.
of a Jace card or a deck that
Mango
wants to play
them.
big
Nice
spells.
crowd
Snnuy
out
glowing
here.
extra seeing
And
these nerfs.
Hextech Handler is the much more direct
Mike, man,
nerf
thank
to
you for the
Heimer
8 months.
Jace, taking off that health buff for all the tech. It would
God bless, man.
happen where games would be you play 2 of these, the turrets are all X3s, you had a lot of removal turns off on them, and playing against Heimer at that point became really hard or frustrating, or even when not Heimer, playing I can't remember the name of the spell that summons all the turrets for all
This
of your mana.
doesn't change how the
Why
deck
can't
is
I
played at all.
Production Surge.
There's
yeah.
no mana
Production
increase, nothing.
Surge,
It's just
that one. So playing Production
it's
Surge
easier
after
to
a couple
defend,
Hextech Handlers
and they're
is
less
really
chonky
filling
turrets.
the board with
Good.
turrets and stuff could be rather painful to play against. So we're making it where that small ping removal is again a little
Thank
bit better
God,
against them and
man.
open up more avenues.
After
of attack
2
there.
years, it's finally not
A
playable
lot
anymore.
of a
Not
lot
as
of
good.
chat is actually in agreement with it, which is funny to me because I see a lot of Heimer Jace on the ladder. So the fact that people who are playing Heimer Jace are like, okay, fair, all right, that kind of speaks volumes to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Heimer Jace is one of those decks that's lasted far longer than most decks without avoiding like a pretty serious nerf.
Exactly,
It's
man.
been around
Yeah.
for a while. All right, here's the next one. I have conflicting feelings about this one, but I'll let y'all talk about it.
Yeah, Watchful Idol is a
Losing
tough
a
card.
tire
It's
proc.
basically like we know that this deck is pretty
Rip Bozo.
strategy.
That's so funny. Oh, hell yeah.
Being able to start that tentacle on round 1 is pretty huge for the spawn deck.
Suck
But at the
it,
same time,
Alawi.
leaving it at 5
That's
health
so
was
funny,
basically
man.
giving you a 3/3 for 1 mana investment, even if it was like slow and over time. That then also like interacted well with all your other cards. And secondarily, this was also really boosting Swain and kind of keeping him in a spot where it was tough to actually make Swain outside of Alawi decks work well. We think making this change allows us to like let Alawi
One mana for
still
2/2, that's
play,
still
and
good.
then we can kind
That's
of
still
see
good.
the impact that it has on those secondary decks and make moves based off of these changes.
All right, sounds
One mana
fair
2/2
enough.
that
I'm still
synergizes with the
sad
deck
to
and gets
lose
like your
the
big
one
tentacle rolling
but,
is still
you
good.
know, for the
Finally,
greater good of
fuck
the
Hillary.
game, I will accept it.
Word.
I can tell you
Feed
straight
Hero.
testing Watchful Idol on 1 is still really good.
That's a death card. As long as Alawi is a playable
All right,
champion,
next.
that is not a death
Sting
card.
Officer.
It's not.
Yeah, Sting
Good change.
Officer. We were
Good change right there.
looking for things to change within the elusive strategies that have been popping back up again. And
Better for
honestly,
flash
that
bomb
deck's
decks,
pretty
worse for
hard to
elusive
nerf.
decks.
There's a
It's
lot of
good.
cards that are already just 1 mana 1/1s, and there's not a lot of numbers to move on those. So we went.
I'm assuming
with the
there's
Sting
more.
Officer,
If
a
this
card
is
that
all it is,
was always
then
supposed
yeah,
to be
that's
a
not good, but
traps
I'm assuming
card,
there's more than this.
but was never as good in that
Good
deck
change.
because it often died to small ping removal. So we made it a 1/2 here, hoping that that gives the elusive decks a little less aggression. Give them maybe a little more texture with 1 unit that's got a little more health, and actually makes this card better in the traps archetype because it's going to survive longer to give you 1 or 2 extra Nexus strikes, maybe actually get you some traps planted, when before it often would come into play and die and you just wouldn't get anything out of that deck.
So
He's also sneaky really good at stopping Teemo now, so yeah.
a lot of
right.
people in chat really feel like this is more of a buff. Does this feel more like a
It's a buff for
balancing
flash bombs. It's a
for
nerf
y'all
for
on
the
the
elusive
design
decks that we see
team?
right
Like,
now.
how do you feel about this change, like in terms of power level change?
I think
Yeah,
it makes
is
the
it-
card a
oh,
little
go ahead.
different. It is a card that is going to be better in some
This
games
isn't a
because
buff
it does
for
have
elusive
2
deck,
health.
it's a
It
nerf
won't
for
die
that.
to small removal in quite the same way. But in a deck like elusives, the problem wasn't that small removal. Like, your small removal is still going to be very good. They play a ton of units that die to things like Pytos. So having one that survives that's also kind of a smaller, a 1/2 unit, just puts less pressure on. It might be better in some cases, but I think
This is a
overall
buff
it's
to
going to
elusive,
be
you're
a bit worse.
smoking. That's cope.
Cool.
And I think
You're
in general,
coping.
like we're pretty excited.
Everybody
to try
that
out
thinks this is
nerfs
a
that
buff for
feel
elusive
less
is
like they're
coping
just raw
hard.
Nerfs. It's not as exciting when you just bump a number off of something and it just gets strictly worse.
Again,
because it doesn't
there
really
has to
generate
be more.
ways to
They
use
made
the
an
card.
entire
But
point
if we have
that
an
there are nerfs
opportunity
to
like
elusive
with
decks,
this
I'm
one to
assuming there's
maybe
more.
make it worse in a deck where we feel
This
like
is
it's
a start.
creating an imbalance in the meta, but maybe make it stronger in a deck that isn't as well represented, that actually like helps generate more creative options for players going forward.
Definitely. All right, sounds good to me. Oh, this next one makes me sad, but I think is necessary.
That's a big nerf.
Yeah, the
God
large cloudy
damn.
boy, Exalted Cloudwinder, has been really performing well since coming out with
Necessary.
Janna. We knew that Janna's package needed like a little bit of an adjustment somewhere, so we looked at a lot of different
Had
cards
to get
and
nerfed,
felt
man.
like
Had to.
this was a good place where it brings the card back in line, but it's still drawing you 2 cards at the next round start. It's still getting its cost reduced. Like, it does plenty even with slightly less attack.
Yeah.
I just want to say this is part of an effort to playing against that deck. One of the problems was always it's really hard to block.
Still no burn tag.
Plus burn spells.
Still no sub-type.
You know, a 3/2 quick attack is almost unblockable. Bring it down to a 2/2 means you're a little more likely to be able to make some blocks on it and not feel like your units.
I think this is still like fairly playable, to be honest. I don't think it's a dead card at all. You're playing this for the effect.
Sounds good.
More
Let's keep this train going because we have a lot of balance changes today, y'all.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, Balin the Benevolent.
Oh my
He's so
god,
benevolent that
no
he buffed
longer
himself,
buffs
which is
itself,
not quite how
really?
benevolence works. But
No shot.
we have changed that now. He's only going to grant other formidable allies.
I mean, formidables were everywhere at start, but I haven't seen them for like 2
incredibly
weeks.
powerful formidable card, kind of made
They were
formidable
gone.
into an archetype almost single-handedly.
Yeah,
His
I don't know,
ability
man.
to just
I don't
kind
know.
of stick around and play and grow his own health makes it where it often was really hard to take him off the board. And that's kind of not something we want for cards that give an everywhere buff every single round.
This
We
card
want
was
you to be able to
bugged
block and trade
because
with them,
if
and
it buffed
if you
itself,
want
it like wouldn't die to
multiple buffs off of it,
sunburst. They
you
were
really
like,
need
yeah,
to
instead
work
of fixing
for it.
that bug,
So
we're
hopefully
just
this will
gonna
kind
do
of
this.
lower its ability to just run
Just
away
to
with
fix
the game by
fix the
itself on
bug.
round
They're
4.
doing this.
Yeah, sounds good. And
nice, good choice.
this
Good
one
choice.
also hurts
Smart.
my soul, but let's just get to it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, this was one that kind of came in a little later. We were definitely
Wow.
finding that Valley of Imitation, coming down on 3, was just curving a little too easily into all of the various like transform synergy cards.
Big nerf.
We think
Big,
adding one
big
extra
nerf.
cost here like makes you make some more choices in that deck about like which
My god.
thing that synergizes
Kinda
super
dead.
well with your
Kind of a
transforms
dead
you're going
card
to
now.
play on a given turn. It's definitely a card that we think is a lot of fun and does some really interesting stuff.
Rip
but
Chip.
was just coming
Chip
down
is
a little
dead.
too fast to be healthy.
All tier 1 decks are
Oh,
getting
a
nerfed.
lot
yeah,
of the
so
a lot
far.
of the Nidalee enjoyers are quite
hope there's
sad.
more for elusive.
And I'm sad because it's
There's
you
no
know,
way they make a
obviously
point
this
that
is
they're
chip
giving more
right here,
tools to
you
fight
know, the
elusives, and then they're
imitation
like
of chip,
2-1, 2-1, 2.
it's-
There's no way.
It had to
I
happen.
bet there are more cards that are getting the I can block
So
elusive
let's
tag.
just rip the band-aid off. Let's get into it.
Okay.
Here we have just a change that you know some people
Does
probably
this
saw
stop the
coming
board
as
from being
well.
filled?
Beguiling Cobra, changing it from being the first unit you summon each round.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
first,
that deck was
unit
degenerate, let's
you
be honest.
Play each round.
The combo's gone?
Beguiling Cobra had quite a few ways to go infinite in
Yeah.
the back row with some things, including our Valley
I mean,
Invitation
you know.
friend there, and that was just
It's an Ionia
definitely
nerf. I'll
overshadowing
take
the
it.
other things the card could do, or like cool setups. And if you were going to play Beguiling Cobra, why wouldn't you play the combo? And it's just kind of not what we intended the card to be doing. So we're going to pull back on that, and hopefully people will play it in some other places.
All right. Let's
Ionia
get
nerf, we're
on
here for
to
it.
the
It's
next
also a Nico nerf,
Swindle.
Swindle's been a card that's been really potent ever since it's been
Good.
released, partly just
This
for the amount of
card
information that it
was
gives you.
extremely
It just-
frustrating.
you can kind of like slap it into most decks that have the ability to activate the plunder, and then being able to know 3 of the non-champion cards in your opponent's
It's another
hand,
Fist Samira nerf.
really sets you up to make extremely
Fine.
strong choices going forward. Cutting it back to 2 choices means you're like getting a less
Actually,
useful card
wasn't playing that
some
anymore,
percentage
was
of the time, but you're also just getting less things that you
Kinda
know
random,
to play
actually.
around. Makes it a bit less headbendy to be on either side of Swindle, and hopefully tones the card back slightly.
There's someone in chat named Vinicius Luigi said, "Y'all are really coming for me, huh? I promise we're coming for the meta. It's not targeted at you, but if you play mostly meta cards,
Yeah.
I am coming
We're
just
coming for
that,
those
actually.
meta
I love all
users.
of their match results. It's a vendetta.
Day 1 of the patch, Aaron is like, Vinicius Luigi, that is our target.
That's it. Right there. I didn't put that on the slide, but just know.
well, okay, I guess so. The truth's coming out.
Get
Oh
Luigi.
man. Oh no,
It's all
this
aimed
next
at
one is
Luigi.
one
I'm
of my
waiting for the boss
highest
man.
mastery champions. I think this is one of Majin Bei's highest mastery. Let's look at it.
A couple people's highest mastery champion, probably, if we're being honest. Yeah, Samira. I mean, what has not been said
What?
about Samira? This is like her 4th time on one of these dev streams, I think,
What?
getting talked about.
She is
Uh,
dead.
Yeah, so we are
What the
finally kind of
hell,
pulling the
dude?
band-aid off. Samira's flare is going up to 2, and her champ itself is going to reduce the cost of your flares when you strike to make it where they will cost reduce over time, but you're not going to have that
okay.
round
So
two
see,
play
reduce the
of,
cost if you strike.
you know,
Okay.
I play the
mean,
Samira,
what
I
the
flare my
hell,
Samira,
man?
I
That's-
challenge
she's
your
dead.
2-drop. That would
She's
happen
dead.
a lot and would make a lot of 2-mana units that don't have 3 health
I was
not feel
not
very
expecting
good to
that,
play.
dude. I was not
Flare still
expecting
being
that.
2
Wow,
means you can
they're
still do that
coming
in
for
later
all
game
like
and player
the
and
meta
challenge a thing.
gods.
But
Sky Guardian.
you just
Oh,
really
Little
want to
Boy, thank you
open
for
up
5
that
months.
early game to more units that have the ability to not just die to her and see more play.
God damn.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into some buffs. I know
Hell yeah.
nerfs can be kind of hard to
Titanic
stomach.
balls falling
But let's talk about the Titanic units.
Here we go.
Yeah, so as Aaron mentioned before,
Dusk Raider is Titanic!
We have a lot of Titanic things happening, and we realize there's a bunch of big units from older sets that are like just on the verge of being Titanic.
We'll take it, man. We'll take
it. And might be helpful.
Welcome to the Titanic Club.
So yeah, we gave an extra power to the Zondiva.
That's kind of cool, man.
Buffed up the clock hand, I believe, by +1/+1, and then same for Savage
Raider
Titanic. And then gave an extra health to Sejuani's boat, the Tusk Raider.
That's really cool.
We think for all of these, like.
This might make like Sejuani with the Ursine
that's already playing
sigil printer pretty good.
Titanic benefits. And maybe we'll open up some different avenues for those types of decks.
A Savage Reckoner.
I have a random question from a non-designer perspective, but I'm thinking of like Clash of Titans. Does adding more Titanic units kind of diluting the pool of like those really, really nice units to hit? Is this like a slight theoretical nerf to it by having some of these other, I guess maybe less game-changing Titanic
Savage
units in the
is
pool?
good though from Clash.
I mean, yeah. By math, yeah. It's not the intent of it. There's a lot of other stuff you can do with it, but yeah, anything that pulls from a large pool like that is going to have kind of secondary effects.
Clash deserves better, man.
I've just seen a couple of Reddit posts talking about of people molding after someone hits a really nice Clash of Titans. All right, let's go on to more buffs. More buffs.
All right, more Titanic units. These ones a little fancier. We've added a couple play effects to Wrath of the Freljord and to Otacon, Bringer of Ruin. Really want to make these big plays do something, be more exciting. Wrath of the Freljord. Now, Frostbite's a thing, making it where it can attack through the turn it comes in. Which is pretty awesome. And Otacon now has a play effect that revives your strongest dead ally. Meaning where, Otacon has always had a problem historically of you play it and it gets Will of Ionia or Vengeance and your 10 drop just kind of doesn't do anything.
The landmark.
So now if it does get killed or recalled, you'll get something on the board and hopefully not just die immediately. Eldred, Mage Seeker Leader, now gives a buff to your units whenever they survive damage. Hopefully opening up this card to have decks
actually so big.
Previously, it was just kind of a neat card, but there wasn't really a deck there. Just giving your Nexus Tough isn't enough for the draw. Maybe now you can play with some of the other Scars cards.
Wait, that's so big, dude.
Make something cool.
Oh my god.
People are very excited about Otacon. People are very, very happy about this. It's funny. One of the Reddit posts I mentioned was about Otacon being pulled in Clash.
That's so sick.
I'm going to point this out just to show that we were paying attention to Clash of Titans. Otacon is explicitly a play effect, just so it wouldn't trigger if you summed it off Clash of Titans, because we already knew that was one of the strongest things you could hit.
Cool.
We also knew that, like, normally we would do that at a summon speed, but yeah, this is not one that we felt okay giving you for free on Clash of Titans.
See,
come on.
Y'all are always
I'm not going to soul cleave Otacon.
I'm
not going to soul cleave my Otacon to bring back another Otacon that I just killed. And then
yeah, so Berserker
Arsenal is definitely been one of the reasons. Soul cleave on Otacon would literally give you a board full of Otacons.
Just at 5/3. It is a very potent ability to kind of just print Sigils of the Storm. We were a little cautious with it when it came out. Possibly too cautious. We'll see. So we wanted to give him a little more stats back. So you
it might be pretty good now.
Live that printer dream and be able to do something interesting.
When you play a spell or skill,
cool. There's certain memes about the Clash of Titans card that people are talking about in chat, and I cannot. I need to stop reading. It's too funny. Good. Okay, let's go to other buffs before I get distracted.
Yeah, I'm saying they're saying why they didn't make it a summon. That's why I'm explaining
here with one of those elusive tech tools. This is the most important one I think we put in the patch. We have given Omen Hawk the ability to block elusives. There was a lot that went into this decision. What regions should have can't block elusives? What size of unit should have it? I think blocking Badger Bear does it really, really well. And we wanted a smaller unit that kind of is able just to trade off and give you a little bit of game against elusives. And one that you're just kind of willing to play in a generic Freljord Unity deck. And Omen Hawk seemed like a prime candidate for that. Also, I mean, it just makes sense for the Omen Hawk to be able to see what's going to happen.
Cool, man.
Chat is losing their collective mind over this change. I'm going to go back and look at like the analytics, and there's going to be a giant spike, and that's going to be when we got to this slide. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think comparing this with blocking Badger Bear is really interesting because like Badger Bear
there it is.
can end
There's
up
the elusive
walling
nerf.
an Elusive's deck just because of the high health. In playing with this Omen Hawk change, it does a really good job of slowing them down without completely negating their game plan, which we think is a really like strong place for this ability in the future.
It's
It's
kind
not
of weird,
as
right?
potent as Badger Bear.
Because if
Obviously, Badger
Freljord
Bear is
wants to beat
extremely good
elusive,
at,
they can just play Avalanche
stopping
most
that
of the time.
particular strategy.
I'll
But this
take
is
it.
a nice way for us to give kind of like a lower, maybe put this ability out in the world more frequently without it just invalidating elusive.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Entirely.
Yeah. Let's get into some more buffs. Let's go.
All right, we have a couple spells that are moving
Focus
up to a
speed,
faster
Cold
speed.
Shot.
I'll start with Cold Shot first. 'Cause this one is
Hell
mostly
yeah,
just-
dude. I am
it's
here
being
for
slow.
that.
There's no particular reason for it to be slow. So we felt like in order
Yeah,
to like
why not?
modernize the card
Why
and
not?
keep it in line with our current
Burst
design
exhaust,
policies,
yeah, also pretty
made more
good, man.
sense at focus. And in playing with it, it kind of like lets the deck play out a little more smoothly. But we
Burst
don't think
exhaust
it
just
probably
makes it, like,
moves Cold Shot into like
better
automatic
defensively, but that's
at
it.
a base level in an Echo deck. But possibly the more spicy one is Exhaust moving to Burst. So Exhaust is a card that at focus speed felt like it ought to be good, but never quite made it over the line, partly because it was really only usable as an offensive trick.
Yeah.
And there's so many other vulnerable giving options and like power reducing options that having it be limited to only use on offense made the card feel very limited and just like didn't make the cut in most decks.
Yeah.
We think that moving this to Burst lets you actually use this as a better tool in other matchups.
That's kind of cool.
It's
yeah.
already been pretty decent in anti-elusive matchups where you can kind of like pick off their small elusive unit on your turn. But this also lets you pay a smaller penalty to have
Another
it in
call
other
out for
matchups, which
elusives?
just makes
I don't
Exhaust
know,
more likely to show up in decks, which then hopefully gives Shurima a little more game against elusives since they can already bring their best tool with them without like losing too much win percentage elsewhere.
It's good.
Yeah,
Good.
I love the fact too that it thematically Exhaust. Exhaust is iconic. You know, I mean, one of the summoner spells from League. I love that it's hopefully
Yeah,
gonna get.
I play Exhaust on
some
ARAM.
play.
What about you guys?
So let's go ahead.
guys use Exhaust on
This
ARAM?
one's exciting.
Okay.
If you are like me, it took far too long to realize what the title was. This is from John. So, the
That's why I'm
elemental
excited.
decks.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah,
I just
the
tried to get a
elemental
reaction
decks,
out of you
and
guys.
especially
No,
the
I did
Freljord
actually do
elemental
that.
package was something that was maybe came out a little weaker than we wanted. Flamecaller Caprine was definitely
this
one
card
of
is
those units
cool.
that
I don't
we
know how
were
much
worried
this
about
matters,
in
though.
initial dev. I mean, a tough unit that scales its health is really powerful and can be really hard to remove. But you know, a little weaker than we wanted, so let's give it that ability back. Now it has 3 health and tough. Not a ton of things are going to remove it the round it comes into play, and it doesn't give your opponent a lot of time to interact with it before it really scales into a game ender.
Yeah, sure.
Hopefully giving those Freljord elemental decks a little bit of that stronger early to mid game that we want.
Minus
Yeah.
2/3 top. I mean, it scales really
Alright,
hard.
now
Like you
this
play
next
one
this 3
Sky
punches
Splitter
for
on
one
it.
card.
Yeah, the Knuckle Mako Bull. These 3 have been kind of a big. They've been
Here
always been
for
intended
moral
as like, a big
support?
payoff for the Bilgewater coin
Oh,
stack.
okay. Cool.
But didn't.
I mean, that
quite
makes
end up
sense. It does.
landing, partly because of the like distribution
doesn't
of
change
keywords
anything,
on
though.
Mako and Bull, where Brash
for
being
moral
a
support,
elusive keyword
they're
gets a little
cutting
bit
off the
better when
H
board's a little
so
more
it can
limited.
sound even more British.
Ending up on the biggest
for
unit
moral
and
support.
then Overwhelm being on the mid-sized unit meant
Yeah,
that
sure.
your like
Cool.
big payoff turn
Why
often
not?
didn't result in lethal damage, which is kind of disappointing for the deck and tends to lose you games. So we think this change is like pretty interesting, both for when you're ready to go for the full combo, you now have a big overwhelm
Knuckle is
threat to
there.
actually capitalize on that rally. But also, if you're going to go for the mid-sized combo slightly earlier in the game, kind of like play a value Knuckle Mako or something like that, the Brash is actually like extremely useful if you can drop it early on. So we think
If you can drop it early on, hold on. Are we using the card in the
I
same
need to
way?
type something and my keyboard's
do you
gonna be
mean, early
loud,
on?
So I'm gonna talk over
That's 6
it
mana play, buddy.
while I'm typing.
Wait, what?
So smooth, Julie.
Yes, it's no. This is all
no
planned.
one's noticing. It's
Yeah,
fine.
no one noticed. Okay, cool. All right, now I'm gonna go to the next slide. One of the
Oh,
best
there you go.
cards. Thematic.
Yeah.
Oh
okay,
yeah,
it's
everyone
a-
loves
And she
old
loses
Babs.
one attack.
Giving her
Okay,
attune, we
dude.
took off
I mean,
power. She'll
fine.
get that power back from the attune immediately. This is always one of my favorite cards from the set's release with Jack
Yeah, I
and
like this
everything
card,
and
but
the
it's
mana
so bad.
refilling. Never quite splashed, so hopefully kind of making it cost half a less mana will give it a little more room to be played in some of those tempo spell decks that
It
we
was
see.
always a 1 mana 1 or a 2 mana 1/3.
Awesome.
I think we're all rooting for
Attune is
Babs.
like worth half a
Yeah,
mana.
I like it a lot as well. And Dev,
It's cool that you can now play Babs
gosh,
and then Coin.
okay,
That's
the
what
moon buff
matters.
now. Okay.
all right, so this is kind of a long story, so we'll start you through this. We looked back at Brash Gambler, which is this Bilgewater card from like set 2. And we knew there was something missing from this card. It didn't feel complete. Like, it didn't really like match the idea of what the name was. So we looked at a bunch of different options for this one. Jules, you can go the first one. First, we considered like giving it overwhelm as a keyword and seeing what that would look like, and whether or not the that would be enough. But it wasn't quite. So we tried another keyword. We tried challenger. To see if that really made it sing, but still something felt off about the
gamble
card.
keyword. It's
so
they're
we
missing
went to
the
quick
gamble
attack
keyword
next, I believe. Yeah, it still didn't quite read right. Plus, it's like a bit of a stretch for Bilgewater. So we tried some negatives even just to see if it was like overpowered. It didn't quite work.
Clash,
we
Flash
tried, moving it into other regional, themes to see if it could maybe play in other Bilgewater decks, and lurkers just didn't really want it. And the next one, even with the name, it still wasn't throwing away enough cards to make deep decks want it. We even tried seeing if it belonged maybe in
the Ash
Freljord,
Gambler,
but this was terrible. I do not recommend that card. So eventually, we just came back to the original idea and just gave it Brash.
Yeah, sure, man. All right, nice.
Whew, I was not ready for all that. Was good. All right. Yeah, so Brash Gambler. If when the name says it, you should just move in. Brash Gambler.
I don't know, man. I was here for the Trash Gambler
for a long time.
That's basically me, man.
Played a long time.
With the awful decks I played that worked like 10% of the time. I need some trash luck to actually make that work.
Y'all are too much. Let's go. Let's keep going.
Speaking of things that maybe were incorrect initially,
wrap it up. We're done here.
The King's Court is a boat.
Finally.
The community believes boats should draw champions, and we
did it, chat.
You. And I think everyone kind of agreed that maybe that was a mistake. And
we did it.
We should really commit to the idea that boats draw champions. Jack definitely needs a boat that draws him. So
big.
Jack fans, your boat is finally here.
Okay, wait.
We did have a detailed internal discussion about whether or not the King's Court is technically a submarine, and thus it shouldn't draw Jack, but we figured this is...
I was going to ask if you thought... I was going to just bring it up because people are always arguing over ships or boats, and I was going to be, it's kind of a submarine, but you beat me to it, John. I should have told you before the stream that I planned on doing it.
One step ahead. That's what you said, Julian.
It's okay.
Nice.
I'm sure I have like a good joke somewhere
big,
in the rest of this stream. All right, let's go to the next buff.
All right. One more thing that we just did wrong. All right, the Portal Pioneer. That maybe looks like a Yordle. Okay, right, I'm gonna admit it. Maybe So that's just kind of what happens. Sometimes
yeah, it wasn't.
When we're designing
it looked
cards,
off.
Right?
I remember saying that.
The Pioneer cycle, the Explorer cycle. This wasn't initially a Yordle in our plans. But the art came back, and obviously no one ever looked at the card, looked at the art, and just kind of realized that maybe it should be. Yep. So we're fixing that now, which is really awesome. I actually do think adding the Yordle tag to this is pretty sweet. It's a multi-region card, has some good utility, and maybe you can make it off of the Yordle generators. It'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah. Praise be to Erin. She came in to fix any of our previous mistakes and sins and grant Yordle to the Portal Pioneer. So we appreciate you.
Section.
Yeah. All right.
Speaking of Yordles, we also felt like the Yordle aggro deck had been lacking.
I don't know about that.
There's still a lot of tools available, but it's kind
probably
of
still bad.
Behind other things.
I just don't. Really
so we wanted to take
another
look at Yordle Explorer. This is a card that, since its initial rebalancing, just really has never shown back up again. We think giving it a little extra health means it'll stick around on the board and actually, buff some other Yordles occasionally, as opposed to just, having text that it doesn't get to use because it dies too fast.
Some people in chat are saying, well, on the topics of Yordle, it's a little scary. They're getting some Vandal City PTSD.
Yeah.
All right, let's assuage some fears.
All right.
Instead,
we'll use the card. It's a great card against a bunch of little Yordles. Look at that.
Oh, okay. That's kind of cool.
We are changing this card to have the Enlightened buff only deal damage to your opponent's units. The fact that when this card was Enlightened and you had your 10 mana and you often were, at parity on board or a little ahead, not very exciting to play it. Hopefully now this just makes it feel a little better when you actually get into a late game with your sweeper effects where they normally kind of fall off.
There's a fun thematic thing here too, where like most Freljord AoE effects hit both sides of the board, but not Anivia's attack effect. So maybe there's a little thematic connection too.
Yeah, I see you. Okay. Cool. All right, next to Shark.
Yeah, we also took a look at Shark Trainer here. It used to be that this would spend mana.
That
when
was
you
so
attacked,
random. Yeah, I remember.
Most often
attacking with this card and be like, "Where's my shark?"
Hadn't gotten
then it didn't have
yourself
spell
mana,
mana.
or like you overspent your spell mana, and then
These
you
buffs
don't
don't
get your
matter.
shark.
Like, they're
and you're
cool,
very sad.
but
And
who's gonna
Shark
play a
Trainer
Shark
is like
Trainer deck,
definitely
man?
not a card that has been too strong and required that kind of penalty. Also, as a side note, that penalty was one of the like edge cases we always had to check whenever we released new cards that cared about spell mana, because it's like one of the weirdest times at which you can spend mana. So this was kind of just a buff that's a win for literally everybody on the team. So,
all right,
cool. All right, let's keep on.
Yeah, Blade Dance, Shark Trainer, sure, man.
All right, we have some of those cool epics that have always been kind of bad. We're adding a little bit to them. We have the Harrowing Return, now going to revive the unit with Fearsome. It was always cool to revive Fearsome units because it gives that minus power to the enemy team. But now, no matter what you're getting back, it'll have that Fearsome, and maybe it'll get to get in for an extra hit.
I don't think this
a
matters.
little more often. On top of that, Haunted Tube, just losing a mana, gonna go down to 2 cost.
Oh, 2 mana Haunted Tube. Wait, Julian was covering it. I see it that way. That's kind of nice, actually.
Play,
2 mana Haunted Tube is something I would play. No,
really
that actually matters.
So now hopefully it's a little easier to fit
That's
into
big.
your curve once you're ready to revive.
We're playing Talia Haunted Tube, man. Talia Haunted Tube. We're doing it.
I realized.
No, that's good. For 2 mana, that's
there
good.
You can see the -1 cost.
Actually matters.
You see nothing. Here you go.
All right, we have the Generous Gem Crafter here as well. Another card that we think is like a really exciting engine card that just didn't quite have the stats on board to justify the delay required for like what she gives you. Moving her up to a 3 mana 3/3 makes her a little more at parity with things that you'll normally be playing on those rounds.
Sad epic.
Lets you not pay quite as large a penalty for this like future investment in your hand buffing.
Cool, pretty straightforward. All right, next up.
We've Consult the Heavens. This is a card that's always been really cool, but we
full 80 Soraka
never really saw a ton of decks trying to play it. Now we're changing it to a team buff. It is slow now to compensate for being such a more powerful effect, but now your big butts deck can fill the board and actually get a huge payoff and kill them with all of those bubble
what do you
bears
use this with,
so
even?
excited to play, as we all know.
Inner Fire for entirety. What do you?
A lot of what spams in chat.
What do you use this on?
Back, baby. All right.
Yeah, this is a buff that I
sure.
had a lot of. We basically worked on a lot of different angles to try and bring Scion back towards the forefront a little bit, and try and give that deck a little bit of a boost. And one of the things that we realized is that Noble Rebel was kind of not fitting into the actual strategy of that deck.
It's a big buff.
Really
it's a big buff.
A small Overwhelm unit in most cases. That leaned more towards like the older discard aggro type of decks, which have enough other options that they weren't really interested in Noble.
Challenge that Underwhelm.
And we also realized that I believe it's Lost Soul, the like infinite discard unit, that had Challenger at one point, and we ended up rebalancing it to Fearsome because giving you infinite Challenger.
5/2 Challenger is not a great set. For 3 mana, yes, it is.
Since that changed,
Definitely
the Scion deck really struggled to kind of control the board earlier. So we moved the Challenger onto Noble Rebel as an option for that deck to really like slow down the game, let their more value-based discard game plan come to fruition, and then become like a pretty sizable removal tool.
Yeah, this is really good for your archetype. I agree.
Awesome. John, I think there's one more buff that you need to talk about here.
I have to be responsible for this one. I promise this is not a vanity buff for myself.
That's not a vanity buff.
But we did feel like
that's a big buff, dude. What do you mean?
More strength in the early
No,
game,
hold on.
And found that like buffing Megatusk's health becomes a really strong blocker at that point, and really helps slow you down to the point where you can actually hit deep. I'm very happy with this one.
So for full context for everybody, John's avatar is the Megatusk on like everything. So John is a self-proclaimed Megatusk fanboy. So you know what? It's okay. If I was in your position too, I would use that power.
Look at his eyes. His eyes are perfect.
I just got to call out too. So I made the slide title here first, and then John came back, and his response to the slide title was "add the 9 Nerfs." It wasn't any shame. It was like, oh yeah, absolutely, that's what this is.
Look, if we had a Walrus Champ, I would put the Walrus Champ sticker in there, but the closest we've got is a Manatee, so it's just sea mammals rise up, you know?
If we get one, I think we know who will be responsible. And let's go to the next buff.
All right, Eclectic Collection, -1 cost.
Hell yeah, dude.
Really fun and resolving.
Oh my god,
really fun to watching all the traps.
6 mana, that's big, dude.
But 7
that is
mana
big.
was just a lot.
That is the Mr. Thrift buff we were waiting
a little
for.
more play here at 6 mana.
Yeah.
All right. And it's funny, so
yeah,
with all of
Jay's
this targeted, elusive toolkit, a lot of people are saying buff Teemo. I'm not sure this is what they meant, but we have something.
This is a huge buff for Teemo
thank
that
you.
will definitely impact every game.
Here we go, chat.
Yeah, this is mostly kind of a buff for Howling Abyss edge cases and more frequently like Path of Champions.
Yeah.
Where sometimes you just end up with a level 2 Teemo that doubles the 0 puff caps in the enemy deck and does absolutely nothing. We wanted to make him slightly less useless when he shows up in those cases, so we've moved it to a 5 minimum puff cap.
That's for us. That's for us.
It's possible for this to show up in constructed games if something really weird happens and your opponent draws a lot of puff caps early, but for the most part, it's just for those things.
Whoa,
if it shows up
a lot of
real
changes,
game
man.
and it causes you to lose, please send your complaints to @RiotIamWalrus.
Yes,
love
please
to
do.
hear about it.
I want to take just a second to go on a little aside. So we actually did an interview with Dan Felder from the Path of Champions team and the Real Prism Sword. And one of the things that he brought up in the interview was like, so for you who haven't checked it out, you can potentially get some like level 2 champions in Path with Aurelion Soul. Go check out the interview, The Real Prism Sword. It's on YouTube. I think they also have it on Twitch. And they made a comment like, oh, Teemo would be kind of useless just coming out as level 2. Can't double those buff caps. So when I saw this, it made me smile. So once again, go check out that interview. Awesome content.
I should also say, if you do lose to this and you want to complain, send your complaints to me. But if you like this change and you're happy about it, Brian Koplek was the one who brought it up. I think it was a really good call.
He's got that path brain. All right, let's keep going.
Kayn. Now, Kayn's champ spell, pretty powerful already, but we have decided to take it down to -1 cost to put it down to 3.
That's a big buff.
Kayn has suffered a bit after.
That is actually kind of a big buff.
Cultist stuff and the
because you most of the time you will have 2 Kayn's in your hand because of the auto draw.
So we want to give him a really small boost that just makes him a little more exciting. This makes it where you can play
good.
your Kayn
3
into
mana
your Shadow
from 4 mana is just a really big buff because you can play that from spell mana, right?
And hopefully you can bring King back into the metagame just a little bit.
There's also kind of a bug fix that will end up buffing Kayn a good bit. The momentous choice has not been reducing its cost properly. I believe the fix for that is in this upcoming patch.
Gifts for Nobify.
A lot of people
bring that Ionia nonsense in here, man.
I think my favorite comment was from Captain Sarah, who this whole stream she's been like, "Let them cook." Yes, good change. Captain Sarah was like, "Whoa! Let's slow down now. Let's think about this one." We'll see how it plays out. All right, what else do we have here?
So we've done a bunch of recall changes for this as well.
2 mana Children of the Forest. Wait, what are you
First
talking
is Children
about?
of the Forest. This is a spell that when it originally cost, I think it was like 8 mana.
Bro.
Yeah, it's 8. It was just the 8 mana version of this modal card, where basically it would summon the 3 strongest things you've recalled all game. It's a very potent effect, but like at 8 mana and then asking you to kind of like play the recall game.
Isn't that good? Recall an ally? It's like tag outs.
So we made it into a modal option.
I mean,
that lets
we play 9
recall an
lives
ally
sometimes.
for 2 mana, which is a little under rate, or spend the 8 mana for the big finishing move. I think this is really cool.
It's fast speed. I doubt that it'll be
fast
fast speed for the 8 mana
It lets you
card,
do things
right?
early on if you don't want to wait for the mana, but the card also sort of incentivizes you to consider like recalling your opponent's big things. So it isn't just strictly another piece that just slots into Ari Kennen without thinking about it. So I'm really excited about this one. I'm bragging about it a lot because Aaron was the one who pitched the change, I believe, for this. And she did a
I
great
just
job.
changed it so when you generate it mid-game, it's not totally useless. You're welcome.
We also added one more power to Liminal Guardian, which you'll see off 9 lives, which don't be worried if you didn't know that, because I don't think most players have ever resolved that card.
I have.
It's a burst blocker, which is kind of potent and makes the 4 power like really notable, but we still wanted to make sure it stayed fragile so it doesn't become too strong at like, shifting your board presence after it comes in and blocks something. And then lastly, we have Singular Will, which used to cost 10 mana and now costs 9. This is still a really expensive effect for a really potent effect, but taking a little bit of numbers off of it will hopefully move that epic from something that you would absolutely never cast to something that maybe like
Children of the Forest
becomes a
against
slightly more
Titanic
interesting
units?
edge case option for an Ionia deck looking for mass removal.
Yeah, is it really potent though? I don't know about that.
Awesome. So this is all hinting towards our last change.
Okay.
Let's see.
There we go. Ari, -1 to level up.
And there's an elusive buff. All right, here we go, Chad.
She's a champion player. Some players really love, and she's not been good for a little while. We're hoping decreasing her level up, letting her get to that level 2 a little sooner, will help you play her more often as a 3 health unit, buy a little less, and just be more satisfying to use. Don't want to see Ari getting return to its extreme dominance in the old days.
It's an Ionia card.
Hopefully this will make it an option for people that really love the archetype that can do well.
It's okay, we have Omen.
Yeah.
Awesome. And that concludes our
they had to end it on the Ionia cards
live stream. Just a couple of things. Patch notes will be out tomorrow at 10 a.m. I mentioned earlier, but we have a lot of really cool Path of Champions things coming. We have a few skins, so make sure you check out those patch notes.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for that, actually.
Once again, shout out to the Real Prism Sword. We did a really big deep dive about
the change should be on the LOR report.
First 4-star champion coming to Path of Champions, so please go ahead and check that out. Aaron, do you have any closing remarks? Anything you want to say to our captive audience?
Yeah, I want to reiterate that this one is definitely a team effort for a patch. We had 4 people that worked on it total. John and I had to split time working on it. Once again, I appreciate that. So really, if you love the patch, everyone on the team collaborated. It was awesome.
I don't know if I love the patch yet. I haven't played with it yet.
If you really hate the patch, it's all John's fault.
The nerfs look good.
Agreed.
Closing remarks, John?
Yeah, I just thank you all for playing so much. It's awesome to get to design these cards for y'all, come back, make changes to them, and get to look at them all again. Yeah, and go play Megatusk.
Nah, I'll pass.
All right, y'all. So I'm actually going to raid one of our awesome community members. Y'all really make this community what it is. I love being community manager for you guys. And so please stick around and support the person that we raid. Show them some love. Let them know that Legends of Runeterra as a community supports
Show them some love.
So I'm going to go ahead and start that raid and send them some love, you guys. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next live stream.
We raid Rolly all the time.
Wait, it needs 10 seconds.
You guys know Rolly.
Okay,
we're gonna go over the patch notes. Not rating Snnuy. No, I'm good with that. We should support the smaller creators too. Okay, let's go over them one by one. This chat is kind of in the way. Okay, so I think there were more than 30 changes that we have to go over. So let's start with the Balin the Benevolent. Grant formidable allies, grant other formidable allies. So it no longer buffs itself on the attack, which just means that whenever it attacks, it's a little easier to kill because it will stay a 0-4 instead of going to 0-5 on the attack. What I find funny about this is that this card was bugged. And if you try to like sunburst it or anything else, you try to like silence it or something, somehow Balin would keep the 1 health that it gave itself, even though it wasn't supposed to. So instead of fixing that bug, they just straight up nerf Balin. I don't really think it was necessary. I think Volibear Galio decks were kind of falling out of favor. Balin seemed like fine to me. This is a pretty big nerf. I still think Formidables are very playable though. They're just pretty good. The stuff they lost to was mostly like Warden decks too, right? Like Warden got nerfed much harder, and they were losing to Warden because their stats would just be bigger on turn 8. So I think Formidable still is going to be a pretty good deck. And then we have the Innovative Blacksmith going from 2-2 to 1-2. Really, really good nerf. This is exactly the same story as with the Ionian Hookmaster, the Ionia Hooker, going from 1-1 to 0-1 like last year. It was just like, for 2 mana, it just became slightly too good of a 2-drop, while you also get that weapon for like infinite value. So this becoming a 1-2 means that the 3 mana card that you get at the moment is a little less like well statted, and you get the card, the weapon back later for more value. So good nerf, good nerf. Freljord definitely was a bit strong, especially Warden decks, especially the weapon masters from Freljord. So that works. And Warden was just the most disgusting card for the entire patch, and also the patch before that, really. So it's good to see that these decks are no longer the I play subtypes until I automatically win on turn 8 kind of decks. Very, very, very good change. Love it. I think Warden decks are mostly just getting really boring to play against, where it was super one-dimensional. They get to turn 8, they play this card, they have like the Saurian. The Saurian didn't get nerfed, by the way, which is still going to be a extremely good Freljord card. So I'm pretty sure that Freljord decks are still going to thrive. It's still going to be good. And then we see Samira get absolutely murdered. Flare goes from 1 mana to 2 mana. So you can no longer play Samira on turn 2 and play the Flare immediately to give her Challenger and kill something. But now, Once he is summoned or strike and you already have a flare, she gets -1 cost. Or she gives the flare -1 cost, which is nice, but ultimately still a massive nerf. It's really, really, really looking rough for all the Samira fans out there. But then again, you've been playing this card for like 6 months now, and it's been meta. It's been at the top of the meta for 6 months, so fair, you know, fair. She was clearly too strong, so put her down to the level of other cards and what they've been trying to do. Wildfire goes from 1 mana to 2 mana. I got called out on the stream for this one because I love cards that are printable. Wildfire was a very, very printable card. You know, there are no time bombs. So, you know, I don't really mind that this got nerfed, but it feels like it's a dead card. You used to play Wildfires. You would spend 6 mana total to kill your opponent because 6 Wildfire is 21 damage, I believe. Now it's 12 mana, and you have to make a much bigger actual investment to kill or to play the Wildfire. Now, there is the... Oh, the chat is cut. So, the decks where Wildfire was playable, the Iona decks, they didn't actually use spell mana that often. They mostly just played like aggressive units early while banking spell mana sometimes. Usually they would just vomit out units, so it's not like they actually access to spell mana that often, but in like the later stages of the game, you would. Now, this is still a massive, massive nerf. You're not going to be playing Wildfire to like activate your flow anymore. So, yeah, I actually think it's kind of a dead deck. Yeah, no, it is. I'm not even going to try to cope. This wasn't fun to play against. It was a miserable card. So, there we go. It's done. It's gone. Exalted Cloudwinder goes from 3-2 to 2-2. This is a really good change. I believe this is the only Janna nerf that we're seeing, which I'm not really sure is going to matter enough. It is a big nerf to Neela Janna, but other Janna decks and how flexible the C is aren't really affected by this at all. So the one thing right now to consider is that in the decks that care about drawing cards, don't really care if this goes from 3-2 to 2-2. It's still like you play it for the effect most of the time. Sometimes I'm not even attacking with my Exalted Cloudwinder because usually the earliest you discount the Cloudwinder is on turn 5. Like you play Janna on 4 and then you play the Cloudwinder on 5 for 3 mana. So it's like, you know, if you're attacking on turn 5 with a 3-2 quick attacker, that isn't always good enough. You could also Eye of the Storm this, but you know, you want to use your Janna discounts on that same turn because you played her on 4, so I don't really think this matters. You could just hold this back, block with it. The deck doesn't really care about attacking with your 3-2 quick attackers. I really think that the Windborn Mariner had to get nerfed. But you know, whatever. So Sting Officer goes from 2-1 to 1-2. And this already seemed controversial just looking at the chat when it was announced. People think this is a buff, which is pure cope. You're coping if you think this is a buff. Because it's not. It's a buff if you like Caitlyn. It's a buff if you like playing Flash Bomb decks. And those are awful. So if you like playing Flash Bomb decks, good for you. You're going to be happier because if you played it on 2, there's a slightly higher chance that you actually get a hit in with this. But for elusive decks, this is a nerf because they just care about dealing that 2 damage with an elusive unit. If they have a 1-2, yeah, that's 1 less damage. That adds up because, you know, if you have that ping, you can use that on another unit. It's, I can't Pythos anymore, GG. See, that's a statement I see everybody make, but that's like, that's not a good argument because there are so many units in elusive decks that are Pythosable. This is sometimes not even the one you want to use it on. Most of the time, it's not the one you want to use it on. So that's good, man. That's good. Now you don't get baited into shooting it on the Sting Officer instead of something that might matter more. So overall, it's a buff. This will no longer be played in elusive decks. Now, this would not really make it so that elusive decks are no longer playable. They still are, but there are more stuff later in the patch that did also nerf elusive decks indirectly. Okay, Runaway Scrap Trap, Lucis Brash, thank freaking God. This is the nerf that I suggested for the LOR report on Twitter. Really glad to not just randomly die to 6 damage constantly over and over because I'm playing a deck that has like a 2-3 on turn 3 while they have a 6-6. It is really, really nice. I love this. Really happy that we finally see Heimer Jace take a real nerf to the face. Same with the Hextech Handler. Goes from a 3-2 to a 3-3, which is fair. If it's active, it will still be a 4-3. But the turrets, except the tough one, are still pingable. And except the barrier one. And except the T-Rex. Most of them are still pingable. But what matters is that the elusive one is pingable. So now we can actually kill the turrets and not die to elusive that are somehow 7-2s. Really, really good change. This is going to be a great nerf for Heimer Jace. The deck isn't really impacted in the way it wants to be played. However, the deck is just weaker overall. So the play patterns are there, but you're going to have a much easier time actually defending yourself from this elusive cringe. Okay, Swindle. Really random nerf. I haven't seen this card played in ages. I don't really see where this is coming from. Even Fizz Samira decks don't play this card anymore because they played it for the Powder Pandemonium, which got nerfed to 7 mana. The Fizz Samira decks, as far as I know, played Shelly. So, I mean, it's a nerf. It's a good nerf. Swindle is really frustrating because those decks got access to cards they weren't supposed to have access to. But yeah, now it's a little bit worse. Valley of Imitation, from 3 mana to 4 mana. Huge nerf. So far, all the top meta decks have been hit, which is great. Nidalee was low-key, just one of the best decks in the game. It didn't have like a huge play rate when I last checked. That might have changed recently. But yeah, this makes it so that you can no longer play Valley of Imitation on 3, Nakutaka on 4, and then you just have like a +2/+2/+2 impact on every single unit you play on the Valley of Imitation afterwards. Really, really good change. Beguiling Cobra can no longer print itself. What would happen normally is you would have a Valley of Imitation on the board, you would play the Cobra, and your board would be filled with Cobras. That was a combo deck in Ionia, and nobody likes combo decks in Ionia, so that's a good nerf. This deck, or decks that play Beguiling Cobra, will still be playable, even though the card wasn't that great in those decks, but it still does what it does in the non-combo decks. So this is fine. Watchful Idol from 0/5 to 0/4. It only procs itself twice, so you only get a 0/2. This change is kind of hilarious. Really, really funny change. Wasn't expecting them to go this route. I was expecting like a 0/3, and it takes 1 damage at a time, so it's worse with Swain. But yeah, now you just have a 1 mana 0/2, or a 1 mana get a 2/2 later, which is still fine for Alawi decks, because Alawi just really want those tentacles. Good change, good changes. And this one is just wild. I have vowed to never play Pyke again in any non-lurk deck, which I went back on. You know, I played Gwen Pyke. That was when Pyke went from 2 to 1 attack. Now they're making Pyke 5 mana. I don't like this change. I hate this change. If they nerfed Lurk, which I think they should, I really wish it wasn't Pyke. Pyke is such a freaking cool champion, man, and he keeps eating nerfs for Lurk. When people love Pyke and experimenting with him in other decks. Yeah, it just sucks, man. It sucks. It's sad. Nothing else to say. Lurk got nerfed. This is a really big nerf to Lurk. That's good, but it's Pyke, and Pyke deserves better. Omen Hawk can now block elusive units. Good luck with that, Teemo, on turn 1. Omen Hawk has seen a lot of love recently because of Nico. First of all, Nico wasn't that good. Then because of Warden decks. Also just playable in like the Volibear decks that want to curve a little lower. Like, I don't actually think it was played with Formidables. I'm not sure. I've just seen a lot of Omen Hawk, and now it just gets strictly better. It can block elusives. It can block the 1/1s. Very good change. Wings of the Cryo Phoenix now doesn't hit your board anymore when you're enlightened. It will only do 3 to the enemy. This change is fine. Nobody's going to play this card. Doesn't really matter. Tusk Raider is now Titanic. You can cheat out the Tusk Raider. I'm pretty excited about this change. I'm very excited about this change because I like doubling stats. I like getting big chunky units, and, you know, cheating out Tusk Raider to double your stats earlier is really exciting. Great change. Wrath of the Freljord will now frostbite an enemy when played. And the text before is enemies with 3 or less power can't block. So this basically removes a blocker for your attack. Biggest Pigas is back on the menu. Great change. Very, very good change. I just like that they're making Titanic units a little bit better. Titanic decks are really exciting to play. Love it. Berserker Ursine goes from 5/3 to 6/4. I think this card might low-key be pretty sleeper. I think there is something here that we just haven't figured out yet. A engine, more or less, that can keep printing sigils so you can keep playing big Titanic units for cheaper is good. But there is that mismatch because you want to play cheap spells with this, and if you're playing a deck with cheap spells, you don't often play Titanic units. So I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how I should see this. I think this could very well be playable. Mostly because Sky Splitter is such a good card. But yeah. Maybe this needs to be like a pilled over failure deck with the Chinchilla, the Esquilla, whatever. Flamecaller Caprine goes from 3/2 to 2/3. This is a great change because you just want this as like a big chunky meatball that's in the way all the time. And as a 2/3, it's a little more likely that it actually survives the turn it's played. This now means that on turn 4, your opponent needs 4 damage in one go to kill this. It has tough, so they can't like shoot 2 damage at it twice because then it goes down to 1 health now. And that's very, very big. Could see a deck with this somehow still be playable. Be more playable. Adakan will now revive the strongest dead ally. I'm sad that this is a play effect, because if this was a summon, you could use Soul Cleave on Adakan and it would just literally print a board of Adakans. I'm sad that that's not the case. I'm sad that they made this a play effect instead of a summon effect, but that is a really, really, really cool effect. If it was summon, it would be busted, and it would be really frustrated if you got it from Clash of Giants. Because reviving the strongest dead ally, that can also be a champion. It doesn't say follower. It can be a champion. So this could revive Volibear or something. Depends on what you're playing with. Cool change. War's Wild too. Might actually be playable. If you're playing with sigils, you know. Savage Reckoner becomes Titanic. Doesn't matter. But it is nice if you get it from Clash of Giants, because it can actually like kill something now. Because you have Challenger. Gives you a little bit of power. A little bit of control. Noble Rebel gets Challenger instead of Overwhelm. Big change. Really like this. This is something that Cyan decks care much more about. Because they want to gain control over the game before they play their big dudes. Good change. Lord Eldred becomes... I forgot the name. The 3-mana landmark from Freljord. Scargrounds. It becomes Scargrounds. Thank you. Lord Eldred is now Scargrounds, but better. Everything gets tough. And whenever you survive damage, you grant that ally +1/+1. That's so big. I love this change. I really want to play this card now. Demacia, actually cool deck now. Lysandra Eldred, yeah, super tough. Clockhand goes from 7/7 to 8/8. I don't see this mattering, really. However, actually, wait. Hold on, Chad. No, I know why they did this. Hold on. This is because of the Card Kitchen. The Card Kitchen card that won is the one that made like a landmark from a unit in your deck and had countdown equal to their cost. Oh my god, this is for the Card Kitchen thing. Okay. Wow, wait, that's actually really big. That's actually so cool. Wow. That is why they did that. The Card Kitchen card, I don't know when it gets released. I don't know when. But this card is perfect for that deck. Okay, Exhaust goes from Focus to Burst. So this means that you can play Exhaust while you're defending. It just becomes a better defensive tool, which is nice. I don't think this really matters that much, but it's cool. You know, might actually play it now. Feels a little bit better if you're playing it in Renekton decks or something. Singular Will goes to 9 mana. It's an Ionia buff, so we dislike that. This card is a really big blowout, by the way. Like, you could lose to this card single-handedly. If you're playing like a mid-range deck, you're playing a Titanic deck, and they play Singular Will, well, tough luck. You lost. Ari goes from 6 to 5. I also don't know if I like this change. I don't know. Ari is like, it's an elusive card, man. It just makes elusive decks better. And Children of the Forest can now be played for 2 mana to recall an ally, or spend 8 to summon ephemeral copies of the 3 strongest followers. That's nice. 2 mana, recall, and do nothing else is still pretty weird, though. You really need the second part, reviving the 3 strongest followers, to be good. Which, I can't really see a deck for. But with Titanics probably being a little bit more playable, this could be nice. Also, by the way, YouTuber. You know, I'm kind of down to experiment with this once, and that's it. Because it's Ionia. It's fast speed. Now, do we know if it's fast speed? I think the second part is still going to be slow. Okay, Zon Diva goes to 8/5. It literally does not matter. Whatever. Consult the Heavens goes to slow speed, but now applies to all allies. Fully heal an ally, then grow their stats, then grow their power equal to their health. I don't know what deck I'd play this on. I have no idea what the hell I would play this with. Jace buff? Yeah, right. Soraka Tahm Kench? Yeah, I mean, that's an Eternal deck, though. It's Eternal. I don't know what this does in Standard. It's a Standard card. I don't know, man. Generous Gem Crafter gets 1 attack. It plays a gem on itself. Doesn't matter. I think this card is still unplayable. Brash Gambler, believe it or not, gets the Brash keyword. Cool. Loki does make the card a lot better. It's literally Jack now. Brash Gambler is a 4-mana 4/5, just like Jack. Mega Tusk goes to 3/4 to 3/5. That's actually like, that's kind of a big buff. I don't feel bad playing this on turn 4 as a 3/5 as a blocker. And then when you go deep, it heals itself for 3, your Nexus, and everything else. I think this is a huge buff to deep. This is like such an important tool for them. This is the stabilizer when you go deep. Big change. Deep will be very good. Deep will get a big buff because of this, in my opinion. King's Court now draws Jack. King's Court is finally a real boat. I can't wait to experiment with this, but I don't really know. Like, I still don't know what a Jack deck looks like if the King's Court draws Jack. It's cool. It's finally here, but we'll have to cook a little bit to actually make this worthwhile. Okay. Maddle Babs goes from 1-3 to 0-3, but gains a tune, making herself a 1-3 anyway. A tune is like worth half a mana, so this basically became a 1.5 mana card. The best part about Maddle Babs is that you attune and then you get to play the coin. Yeah, that's about it. I don't see this being playable. It needs a keyword. This needs to have a keyword to be playable. Mako, instead of Overwhelm, gets Brash, and Bull now gets the Overwhelm and 1 attack. This is nice, but ultimately still makes the cards pretty unplayable in my opinion. Knuckle into Mako. I think Brash is better for the Mako part, and Overwhelm is better here. It makes sense, but it doesn't matter enough. It needs to be like the big payoff, and I don't think it quite achieves that. Liminal Guardian gets 1 attack. Still unplayable. Unfortunately, this is like the one cool thing about recall decks. Your Explorer gains 1 health, also doesn't matter. Shark Trader no longer costs spell mana to Shaman Sword. This is a really big buff. This is like a huge buff on this. If you can free attack, summoning that Shark is really good. But nobody's going to play this for 7 mana. It's just not good enough. Haunted Tomb goes from 3 mana to 2 mana. Unironically, I think this might be one of the best buffs in the patch. I'm kind of scared for this. It's a printer buff, and I love that. Unironically, might matter. I'm down to play Haunted Tomb Talia now. Haunted Tomb, use Miscall on Talia, Reviver. This could matter. Viego dies, Haunted Tomb. Promising future on the Haunted Tomb. There you go. Winter Sands, thank you for the 16 months. Yeah, I love this. This is a card I'm very excited to be experimenting with. Zombie Ash, that could be it too, yeah. Zombie Ash. Okay, Harrowing Return. Ephemeral and Fearsome. I think this is cool. But again, just doesn't matter, because if you're reviving stuff, it's probably like a Viego or something. And Viego already has Fearsome. It's nice. It actually synergizes with the card itself because you're giving enemies -1/-0. So it's cool, but doesn't change anything for the card. Teemo now plans a minimum of 5 puff caps. Oh, follower? Strong as that ally follower. Okay, my bad. So you can't revive Viego with this. Okay, I completely brushed over that. I knew that, but somehow I forgot because this card is never played, and it'll still never be played. Anyway, so ARAM now giving, if ARAM now gives you Teemo, you will still plant 5 puff caps. I remember when we played ARAM only versus viewers on Freebuild, and I got a Teemo, and I printed Teemo with counterfeit copies, and I played Teemo's champion spell to actually shuffle enough shrooms to win the game. You no longer have to do that. You can just attack with Teemo and shuffle 5 shrooms on the first attack. It shuffles 10 shrooms? No. The first time Teemo attacks the Nexus, it will just shuffle 5. And then the next time it starts, doubling like normal. It's just minimum 5. So even if the opponent has 3 puff caps and Teemo attacks, I would guess that still plants 5, because 5 is more than 3. Math. Secret Keeper buff as well, yep. This is mostly for Path to Champions, let's be honest. With Aurelion Soul being added to the game, and how many random champions you're going to be generating, this feels a lot nicer. And then Kane's Shadow Step goes from 4 mana to 3 mana. Yes, it is counterable by Nopify right now, but being able to play this for spell mana is huge. Does Kane draw itself? If you play Kane, you're equipping him with a darkened weapon, and then his origin might draw Kane. So if you play Kane on 5 and you have another Kane, you could just use this instantly, and that's really good actually. Does this make Kane good enough? This is better? Oh, it's Cultist? Oh, okay, it's Cultist. Okay, my bad. So Kane can't draw it himself. Okay. Yeah, I never play Kane, as you can tell. Still, Kane, Varus, Aatrox are all champions where their champion spell matters a lot because they draw themselves with their origin. So you are much more likely to actually have multiple copies of this. And Kane is I would say has the best champion spell out of all of them. Maybe Varus because it synergizes so well with OTKing and the way his decks play. But this is just generally the best. Generally the most usable in any scenario. And it also helps him level or get those procs on his level 2 form, right? This is a big buff, but I don't know how much this changes for Kane's playability. If Kane becomes playable, it'll be with Aatrox and it'll be because of the meta shift. And I think that is a very reasonable thing to assume. Kane, Aatrox could just come back into the meta. Possible. Overall, I'm happy with this patch. I don't think I care a ton about the buffs. They're not really hitting archetypes that I necessarily like playing, except maybe some of the Titanic stuff. But I love the nerfs because all the meta stuff is like every single deck that is relevant in the meta right now, except like a few. Like I haven't seen Began and Cobra, I haven't seen Swindle, but everything else is very present in the meta. So I'm happy with this patch overall. It's great. Oh wait, yeah, I did forget cards. There was the call shot too. Oh yeah, this was. Oh, I forgot 2 ones. Okay, collected collection. I thought it was done, but there was more. Yeah, collected collection goes from 7 to 6. Big buff, actually. Sometimes, you know, I want to play this as early as possible. Sometimes I go into like, I don't know, turn 4 or 5 and I just have a full board. And then being able to play this because it costs less mana is pretty big. I'm very down to experiment with this card. This is a really, really fun card. It very often just completely low rolls and doesn't do anything. But I think it's cool. I agree. I think this buff is bigger than it seems. Portal Pioneer is now a Yordle. This doesn't matter. This just doesn't matter. This doesn't change anything for any of the decks that this wants to be played in. Call Shot going from slow to focus is very cool, though. I dislike that this is an Echo buff because Echo decks are boring, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Echo near the top of the meta again after this. Echo Jax is just going to be like an extremely good deck, and this is just like a straight buff for that deck. But we've been playing Call Shot with Kahiri. We've been playing Call Shot with Jan and Neela, which, you know, I don't know. Maybe they shouldn't have buffed that deck. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a strict buff. It's a buff. All across the board, it's a buff. I think there are some cool changes, but listen, man, when you look at this card, it's like, is there any card or archetype that was entirely unplayable that now suddenly becomes playable? And I don't really see that. I don't really see that. What I'm just excited about is these decks, these top meta decks getting nerfed and just being able to experience a new fresh meta where hopefully Volibear is a little bit better. Yeah, I'm expecting Deep to be very good after this. This is really big for a Deep. Yeah. There's like a +1 health. Well, everything else gets nerfed that was potentially good against Deep. Like, I'm pretty sure Wildfire is just insane against Deep, right? You just like defend until turn 6, which is usually when they go deep, and you win. So Deep just has much more playing room right now. Even like these Valley decks were much bigger than Deep. I expect Deep to be quite good. Yeah. Great patch.